They saw a broken fence. They saw a poor old man. They never noticed the faded American flag. And that mistake would change all of them. The rumble of a dozen V-twin engines tore through the afternoon quiet, a sound like thunder rolling down a forgotten county road. They stopped in a cloud of dust, a line of chrome and scarred leather parked in front of a place that was slowly surrendering to the earth. The house, once white, was now a peeling, water-stained gray. The porch sagged, the garden was a riot of weeds, and the fence was a disaster. Posts tilted at drunken angles and long sections of planking lay splintered on the ground, a wooden skeleton picked clean by time. The screen door creaked open, and an old man shuffled out. He was thin, with stooped shoulders, as if he were carrying an invisible weight. His gnarled hands gripped the porch railing for support. He squinted at the row of bikers, his face a roadmap of wrinkles etched with worry. Dutch, the leader of the motorcycle club, swung a leg over his bike. He was a mountain of a man with a thick beard and arms covered in ink. His leather vest, his cut, was covered in patches that told a story of brotherhood and a life lived on the fringes. He pulled off his sunglasses, his eyes cold as he took in the scene. The broken-down house, the overgrown yard, and the frail-looking old man. "Help you with something, old-timer." Dutch's voice was a low growl, not openly hostile, but with no warmth in it. The old man, whose name was Frank, swallowed hard. His voice was thin and reedy. I saw you all ride by yesterday. You look like strong fellas. I was wondering. I can't offer much, but I have a little cash. If you could help me with my fence." Dutch let out a short, humorless laugh. He gestured with his thumb at his crew, a dozen men who looked just as hard-bitten as he did. "You think we're a handyman service? We're a motorcycle club, not a charity crew." A flicker of hurt crossed Frank's face, followed by quiet resignation. "I know, I'm sorry to ask, it's just... The VA inspector is coming by next week. They said if I can't secure the property line, I might have issues with my housing aid." Frank wasn't asking for charity. He was asking for time his aging body no longer had. "I can't manage it on my own anymore," Frank added. Dutch's expression didn't soften. He saw a lost cause, a money pit, a waste of his club's time. They had a run to make, miles to cover before sundown. "Not our problem," Dutch said, his voice final. He turned his back on the old man, a clear dismissal. "Let's roll out." He didn't look back as he mounted his bike. He didn't see Frank's shoulders slump in defeat, or the way the old man shuffled back inside. The screen door sighing shut behind him. The thunder of engines erupted once more, and the club roared away, leaving Frank and his broken fence to the silence and the dust. The asphalt ribboned out before them, cutting through miles of sun-bleached farmland. The roar of the engines was a constant unifying presence. For Dutch, this was freedom, the open road, his brothers at his back, and no one to answer to. Yet as the miles ticked by, the image of the old man on his dilapidated porch refused to fade. He'd built his club on a simple principle: you take care of your own. Outsiders were just that, outside. You judge a man by what you see, by the strength he projects, and Frank, by that measure, was a failure. His property was a wreck, a testament to a life that had spiraled into neglect. Helping him would be like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it. A bike pulled up alongside his. It was Garrett, his sergeant-at-arms. Garrett was younger, but he had a steady presence the others respected. His eyes held a thoughtfulness that often served as a counterweight to Dutch's reactive nature. "That was cold, Dutch," Garrett yelled over the wind. Dutch kept his eyes on the road. It was business. "We're not the Salvation Army." "He was just an old man asking for a hand," Garrett pressed. "Said he was a vet. Something about a VA inspector. Everyone's got a story, G," Dutch grunted. "If we stopped for every sob story we heard, we'd never get anywhere. The world's tough. You gotta be tougher. You let your house fall apart like that. You've made your choices." "Maybe he didn't have a choice," Garrett countered. "He looked like he could barely stand. What if that was one of our dads? Or granddads? Our granddads taught us to stand on our own 2 feet," Dutch shot back, irritated. "They wouldn't be caught dead letting their property turn to ruin." "It's a matter of pride, is it?" Garrett asked, his tone quiet but pointed. "Or is pride just telling yourself you're too tough to help someone who isn't?" Dutch clenched his jaw. He hated it when Garrett got philosophical. It complicated things. The world was simpler when you divided it into the strong and the weak. He twisted the throttle, putting a few feet between his bike and Garrett's. A clear signal the conversation was over. But Garrett's words lingered, mingling with the irritating image of the old man's face. Behind him, riding pillion, his younger sister Sienna was silent. Her silence was a weight on his shoulders, another layer of unspoken judgment. Sienna wasn't a member, but she was family after their parents passed. Dutch had taken her under his wing. She was training to be a nurse, a world of compassion far from his, but she loved the open road, a connection to a different, softer part of his life. He glanced in his side mirror. Her face was hidden by her visor, but he could see she was sitting stiffly, her body tense against his. The sun began to dip low. The image of the farm should have been erased by the wind and the miles, but it wasn't. It was growing larger. He remembered the desperate hope in the old man's eyes, and the quiet shame that replaced it. He shook his head, trying to dislodge the thought. Compassion for outsiders was a liability. He had a club to lead, men who depended on his strength. They rumbled through a small town, the engines bouncing off the storefronts. People stopped to stare, some with admiration, most with fear. Dutch was used to it. He fed on it. Their judgment reinforced his identity. We are the outsiders, the ones who live by our own rules. But today, that identity felt hollow. He had just lived up to their worst assumptions. Garrett's question echoed in his helmet. Is it pride? Or is pride just telling yourself you're too tough to help someone who isn't? A profound and unwelcome unease was settling deep in his gut, as heavy as a block of cold iron. They had put another 10 miles behind them when Sienna finally broke the silence. Her voice was small against the engine's roar, but it carried a weight that made Dutch's shoulders tense. "We should go back," she said. Dutch pretended he didn't hear her. "Dutch, I said we should go back," she repeated, louder this time, her chin on his shoulder so he couldn't ignore her. "The subject is closed, Sienna," he said, his voice flat. "We're not going back." "Why not?" she challenged. "Because of your pride? Because he looked poor? Because we're not a charity service," he growled, the same excuse he'd given Garrett. It sounded even weaker the second time. "Even when your decision is wrong." That stung. He didn't answer. "You didn't see it, did you?" Sienna's voice was softer now, filled with a sad understanding that was somehow more damning than her anger. "See what?" he asked, exasperated. "A broken-down fence? A house that's about to collapse? I saw it all, kid." "It's a dump." "No," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You saw the mess, but you didn't see the details. On the porch next to the door, tacked to the wall, he tried to picture it, but all he remembered was decay." "There was a flag," Sienna said. "An American flag, one of those small ones you stick in your garden on the 4th of July. But it was tacked to the wood of the house." Dutch's mind went blank. A flag? He hadn't noticed a flag. It was so faded the red stripes were almost pink, she continued. It was frayed at the edges and had a small tear near the top. It had probably been there for years, through sun and rain and snow. Beaten down, but still hanging on. As a nurse, I see a lot of vets, old guys. Mostly. They don't talk much about what they did, but they have these little tells. A pin on their jacket, a faded tattoo, or a little flag on a porch that's seen better days. That flag wasn't hanging there for decoration. It was a soldier's way of saying, I survived. I'm still standing. And that fence, it wasn't just a fence. It was his last line of defense. The inspector, he mentioned, if he fails that, he could lose his home. The one place he still has that flag hanging. Suddenly, it wasn't about a broken-down farm anymore. For the first time all day, Dutch stopped seeing a problem and started seeing a man. It wasn't about a lazy old man. It was about a veteran, a man who had served his country, now fighting a quiet, desperate battle to hold onto his dignity. And Dutch had laughed in his face. A wave of something hot and sour washed up Dutch's throat. It was shame, a feeling he hadn't had in years, and it was deeply uncomfortable. He lectured his club about honor and respect, yet he had shown none to a man who likely understood those words better than anyone. He was a vet, Garrett had said. There was a flag, Sienna had whispered. The pieces clicked into place, forming a picture of his own failure. He had looked at Frank and seen only the broken fence and peeling paint. He'd failed to see the man. His own rigid code, the one he thought made him strong, had just made him blind. His father had been a Marine. He'd served with a quiet pride that shaped Dutch's entire childhood, teaching him that respect was earned, and no one had earned it more than those who wore the uniform. Dutch could almost hear his father's disappointed voice in the wind. You judged a book by its cover, son, and you didn't even bother to read the title. Dutch? Sienna's voice was tentative, as if she could feel the storm raging inside him. His knuckles were white on the handlebars. Garrett pulled up alongside him again, a questioning look on his face. The rest of the club had fallen back, sensing something was wrong. Dutch was at a crossroads. He could keep riding, let his pride win, and bury the shame under miles of asphalt. That was the easy way. Or he could turn back. Turning back meant admitting to his sister, to his second in command, and to his entire club that he was wrong, that his judgment, the very thing his authority was built on, had been flawed, a show of weakness according to his old rules. But maybe real strength wasn't about never being wrong. Maybe it was about having the guts to make it right. The image of the faded flag burned in his mind, a tattered symbol of resilience. Frank wasn't a lost cause. He was a soldier left behind on a different kind of battlefield. And Dutch hadn't just walked away. Head kicked dirt in the man's face. The conflict tore him apart. The president of the Devil's Disciples versus the son of a Marine. Many motorcycle clubs were founded on respect for service. He had betrayed that unspoken code. Enough without a word. Dutch squeezed the brakes, pulling over onto the gravel shoulder. One by one, the bikes behind him slowed and pulled over, the thunder dying into a tense, uncertain silence. Dutch swung his leg off his bike and stood with his back to the club. He took off his helmet, running a hand through his hair. He stared back down the road they had come from. Garrett cut his engine and walked over. Dutch, what's going on? Dutch turned to face him. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were filled with a grim, steely resolve. He looked at Garrett, then at his men, then at Sienna. He didn't need a big speech. We're going back, he announced, his voice a low command that cut through the air. He pointed a thumb back down the road. We've got a fence to fix. None of the bikers knew it yet. They weren't riding back to repair wood. They were riding back to repair their honor. The ride back was different. It wasn't a leisure run anymore. It was a mission. When they pulled up to the property for the second time, the sun was casting long shadows. The place looked even more forlorn in the dying light. The screen door creaked open, and Frank emerged. When he saw the motorcycles, a look of pure apprehension crossed his face. He probably thought they'd come back to cause trouble. Dutch swung off his bike, helmet in hand, and walked slowly toward the porch. He stopped at the bottom of the rickety steps. Frank, he said, his voice rough but clear. My name is Dutch. I was wrong earlier. I spoke out of turn, and I was disrespectful. Frank just stared, confused. Dutch took a deep breath. My sister, he said, gesturing back toward Sienna, pointed out I missed something. He looked up at the spot next to the door, and there it was, the small, faded American flag, just as Sienna had described, tired, beaten, but still there. Still holding its post, we're here to fix your fence, Dutch said firmly. No charge, we'd be honored to do it. Frank's mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes, once fearful, now welled with tears. He looked from Dutch's sincere face to the dozen other bikers, their expressions now patient and respectful. He finally found his voice, a choked whisper. Why? Dutch looked at the flag, then back at Frank. Because we believe in respect, he said quietly. And we forgot to show it today, we're here to fix that. With a nod to Garrett, the club sprang into action. Vests were laid over bike seats. Tools were pulled from saddlebags, these men, who looked built for brawling, transformed into an efficient work crew. All right, Garrett yelled. First, let's clear the debris. The men got to work. Two of the biggest members, Tiny and Reaper, began pulling old, rotten posts from the ground. Others started gathering broken planks. Sienna walked up the porch steps. "Sir," she said softly, "can I get you a glass of water?" Frank, still dazed, nodded and led her into a house that was sparse but meticulously tidy. On a mantelpiece were a few photos, a young woman with a kind smile, and a much younger Frank, ramrod straight in an army uniform. As Sienna sat with him, he told her his story. He was a Vietnam vet, a helicopter crew chief. His wife passed away a decade ago. Had lived here 50 years, but in the last few, his body just couldn't keep up. The loneliness was the worst part. Outside, the work continued under the glow of motorcycle headlights aimed at the fence line. A couple of bikers made a run to the hardware store, returning with new posts, concrete, and nails. Dutch worked alongside his men, his hands quickly growing raw. He swung the sledgehammer to set new posts, his muscles straining. This was penance. With every strike, he was driving out the poison of his own arrogant judgment. He was rebuilding more than a fence. He was rebuilding a piece of his own honor. Frank came back out and just watched. He saw these rough men working together seamlessly. He heard their easy banter and laughter. They weren't a gang of thugs. They were a brotherhood. And for this one evening, they had extended that brotherhood to him. Tears of gratitude flowed freely down his wrinkled cheeks. As the last plank was nailed into place, a cheer went up. The fence stood straight and true. A few men had even mowed the lawn and fixed a loose shutter. The property no longer looked abandoned. It looked cared for. It looked like a home. The night was cool, filled with the chirping of crickets. The work was done. The bikers, covered in sweat and dirt, were putting their vests back on. Dutch walked over to the porch. Frank stood, his movements slow but steady. He looked at the completed fence, then at Dutch, his eyes full of unspoken gratitude. "I haven't had this many people in my yard since my wife's funeral," Frank said. A heavy silence fell over the yard. The bikers stopped what they were doing and looked at each other, the weight of his words settling in. Then, Frank smiled. "Thank you for coming back. I don't know what else to say." "You don't need to say anything," Dutch replied, his voice softer than anyone in his club had ever heard. "It was an honor." Frank reached out a trembling hand. Dutch took it, and the old man's grip was surprisingly firm. "You have a good crew," Frank said, looking past Dutch at the other bikers. "Good men, the best," Dutch agreed, a surge of pride in his chest. Not the pride of being feared, but the pride of having done right. Frank cleared his throat. "In the army," he began, his voice gaining strength, "we had a saying. Leave no man behind. It meant you looked out for your brothers no matter what. You boys. You did that tonight. You came back for me." Dutch felt a lump form in his throat. He had started the day judging this man by his broken fence and was ending it being taught a lesson in loyalty by him. The club members gathered, nodding respectfully to Frank as they mounted their bikes. Garrett gave Dutch a clap on the shoulder, a silent acknowledgement. Sienna gave Frank a gentle hug. "You take care of yourself," she whispered. As Dutch went to his bike, Frank spoke one last time. "That flag," he said, pointing to the tattered emblem. "My wife gave it to me when I came home. She said as long as it was flying, it meant I was home safe. It's been there ever since." He looked at Dutch. "Thank you for helping me keep it flying." Dutch looked at the flag. For years, he believed strength meant never turning back. Tonight, he learned that sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is turn around. Dutch finally understood. The fence wasn't just about property lines. It was about protecting the perimeter of a promise. He swung his leg over his bike, fired up the engine, and the familiar roar filled the night. He looked at Frank one last time. The old veteran gave a small, crisp nod. Dutch nodded back. With a final wave, the club rolled out onto the dark country road. As they rode away, Dutch glanced in his mirror. He saw the warm lights of the house, the straight, strong line of the new fence, and the small figure of an old soldier on his porch, no longer alone. The house didn't look broken anymore. It looked like a fortress. The rumble of the engines felt different on the ride home. Not like a threat, but like a promise. The club had started the day as a pack of outsiders, defined by how the world saw them. They ended it defined by a choice they made. Dutch learned a hard lesson. He learned that what you see on the surface, a broken fence, a weathered face, is often just the cover of a much deeper story. Real strength isn't about being the toughest person in the room. It's about having the humility to admit when you're wrong and the integrity to make it right. The image of that small, faded American flag would be forever burned into his memory. It was a reminder to look closer, to see past the decay and find the honor that lies beneath. That night, a gruff motorcycle club leader didn't just fix a fence. He repaired a breach in his own code of honor. He and his brothers left behind more than just new lumber and nails. They left a message that Brotherhood has no uniform. Respect is a universal currency. And sometimes the most powerful journeys begin with simply turning around.